The moon turned blood red. People screamed in the streets. Churches overflowed with terrified souls begging for salvation. This wasn't fiction. This was 1504, and Christopher Columbus used it to save his own life. Picture this. You're stranded on an island. Your crew is starving. The locals have completely cut you off. No food, no water, nothing. You're watching your men die one by one, and there's absolutely no escape in sight. That was Columbus in Jamaica, March 1504. His ships were rotting, full of holes, completely useless. The Taino people had been hospitable at first, trading food for trinkets, but Columbus and his men got greedy. They disrespected the locals, stole from them, treated them like servants. So the Taino stopped helping. They refused to give them food. And why would they? These strangers brought nothing but trouble. Columbus was desperate. His men were turning on him. Mutiny was brewing. Death was knocking at the door. But Columbus had one advantage: an almanac, a book that predicted astronomical events. And in that book, he found his salvation: a total lunar eclipse scheduled for February 29th, 1504. He called a meeting with the Taino chiefs. He stood before them with absolute confidence and declared, "My God is angry that you've abandoned us. If you don't bring us food, he will take away the moon. He will turn it red as blood, and darkness will swallow your world." The Taino leaders laughed. They thought he was insane, a desperate man making empty threats. But Columbus knew exactly what was coming. That night, as the full moon rose, people gathered to watch. They mocked Columbus. They didn't believe him. But then, it started. A shadow crept across the moon's surface. Slowly, deliberately, the bright white disk began to darken, and then it turned red, deep crimson red, like blood spilling across the sky. Panic erupted. The Taino people had never seen anything like this. They didn't understand eclipses. To them, this was divine wrath. The sky itself was turning against them. They screamed. They wept. They ran to Columbus, begging him to bring the moon back. They promised food, supplies, anything he wanted. Just make it stop. Columbus, playing his role perfectly, told them he needed to pray to his God. He went into his cabin, watching the time with an hourglass, waiting for the eclipse to reach totality. He knew exactly how long it would last. He'd calculated it from his almanac. After the peak of the eclipse, he emerged and declared that his God had heard their repentance. He forgave them, and the moon would return. And it did. Slowly, the red faded. The shadow retreated. The moon shone white again. The Taino were convinced, absolutely convinced. They brought food, water, everything Columbus needed. They didn't dare refuse him again. Columbus had weaponized the cosmos itself. Now here's the chilling part. This wasn't brilliance. This was manipulation. Columbus didn't discover anything. He exploited people's fear of the unknown. He used science as a weapon against those who didn't have access to it. The Taino weren't primitive for fearing the eclipse. Cultures across the world feared eclipses. Vikings thought wolves were eating the sun. Ancient Chinese believed a dragon was devouring the moon. Mesopotamians saw them as omens of doom. Even in Europe, eclipses caused mass hysteria. The difference? Columbus had knowledge, a book that told him what was coming, and he used that knowledge not to educate, but to dominate. Think about the power of information. One man with an almanac controlled an entire population's fate. He turned a natural phenomenon into a divine threat. And it worked. This event kept Columbus alive for 4 more months until a rescue ship finally arrived. Without that eclipse, he might have died on that island, forgotten by history. But here's the real question. How many times has this happened throughout history? How many times have people in power used knowledge, whether of the stars, medicine, or technology, to control those who didn't have it? Because the moon didn't actually turn red because of anyone's god. It turned red because of light refraction during a lunar eclipse. Earth's atmosphere scatters blue light and bends red light onto the moon's surface. Basic science. But in 1504, That basic science might as well have been magic. And Columbus? He wasn't a hero in this story. He was a con man using astronomy as his con. The blood moon didn't end the world that night, but for the Taino people of Jamaica, their world had already ended the moment Columbus landed on their shores. And that's the legacy of the night the moon turned red. Not a miracle, not divine intervention, but a calculated trick by a desperate man who knew exactly what was coming while everyone else looked up in terror.